I'll start with the obvious. Sure. Number one in the country for you guys, first time since 2019. What does that accolade mean to you? And is there anything that's similar that you're maybe seeing out of this year's group that dates back to 2019, 2020?
Well, yeah, it's early. I do know that. It's but it is the first poll, and it's excitement, and it's a testimony to these guys' hard work. But I think we're viewing it the right way. That that's where we want to be at the end, and you can't get there at the end if you don't have a good start. And certainly, that's really help the guys' confidence. And sometimes you need just a little confirmation, and that's how we view the rankings, as just confirmation of working hard and not necessarily something that we can control. So we're very proud of it because we've worked hard to get that, but we're also trying to view it in the correct way.
Despite how early it is there anything that maybe you've seen come along maybe faster than you expected that's helped you kind of get to where you guys are right now?
Yeah, our depth has really played well. Some of the transfers have fit in really nicely with the kids, and really importantly, our culture and working hard and being good teammates, all the things that we try to do. So that's really helped us integrate those guys in, and they've played well. They've earned some spots, and so those are the biggest things. And Callum Scott's really upped his game. He had a really good summer, and in some ways kind of pushing Ludwig a little bit, even though Ludwig doesn't need much pushing. He's at the top, but I think that trickle-down effect from what he's meant in the clubhouse and helping these guys out too is like having an extra coach around here.
You just mentioned.
What's that hard work been like behind the scenes over the years from the last time you guys have been number one to right now?
Yeah, it's that team, we got cut short. We were ranked one early, we won 3 tournaments, and then got to the spring in March, and I think we're ranked number 3, and really starting to pick up some momentum when COVID hit. And but we have a lot of new faces, but I think that laid a foundation that we could do it. I think it also laid a foundation for other players wanting to come and getting some key transfers. And then once they're here, they've put in the hard work and bought into the things that we've asked them to do. And really in golf, you have to go above and beyond, the 20 hours that we're allowed. And these guys are out here grinding, a lot on their own on the weekends. And every time I pop my head in here just to come into the office, someone seems to be out here working.
It's one thing to have, one of the top golfers in the entire world on your team and then also be top ranked. Sometimes those don't always happen together, but obviously it's happened for you guys now. How does that speak to just how good of a golfer that Ludwig is, and especially how he's been holding this team together so far and come out as a leader?
Yeah, I think his maturity almost outweighs everything that his positive attributes, his characteristics, is really just his maturity, how he's handled all the distractions and being able to still perform at that level. We lay a lot of it at his feet, and probably with those expectations, when he goes back to the Ben Hogan Collegiate, everybody's patting him on the back being the Ben Hogan Award winner. And so I was curious how he'd handle that, and he's really done, just as I thought he could do, which is handled it with class, shook all the hands he needed to, but still got in his work and prepared on site like he should. And then, everyone expects him to win. And in a game where you're teeing it up against, 100 players, you don't see the same guy winning on the PGA Tour every week. So you have to be better than a lot of people. You don't just go play one person and then keep rolling on. So I think that's, for him to put together a good fall with a lot of distractions, speaks to his maturity and his just basically his willingness to stay in the present and execute.
What do you think's been able to keep you consistently in those top 3, sometimes even winning those tournament finishes?
For him, he's just got an all-around good game. But again, I think his mental game is what sets him apart. He doesn't get frustrated in a game where a lot of people do. It's a game that you hit a lot of shots you don't like, so you have to deal with it. And I think that's what he does really well. Is he doesn't freak out over a bad shot. He goes to the next shot and believes in himself, and that shows up over 54 holes or 72 holes.
Coach, you said that your athletes are putting in work on the weekends coming in. There's always someone here. How's it been seeing from the beginning of the season and then putting in the work, and now they're ranked number 1? How has it been seeing them put in that work to get here? Yeah,
it's really just confirmation for us that we're on track, that our culture is working. And sometimes you are always kind of wanting to get to the top, and we certainly again know that we got to fight hard to stay there to the end, but it is validation of what you're doing and how hard those guys are working. And sometimes you need that spark to keep going. These guys have played a lot of golf this summer. We continue that in the fall. We're about at the end of our semester, and they're going to get a break. Sometimes, we needed that spark just to keep going, because I think few of these guys really need a break. They played a lot of amateur golf over the summer and this fall. So I think that's the biggest thing for us is putting in the hard work, but having a little validation behind it.
And what does that mean going forward? How do you stay here and how do you keep that work, but
Yeah.
get the break, but keep
Sure.
that fire rolling?
Well, there's a lot of good teams. I mean, even finishing second in a very strong field. Matter of fact, I think the Ben Hogan Collegiate was the strongest field I've seen in 20 years. A lot of good programs. But we kind of see that North Carolina beat us, and they beat us by 10 shots or so. And then they followed that up with a great win in the Stevens Cup. So we know that we're in the conversation with those guys, and we can play with those guys. But we still know that there's work to be done. And so I think we're really motivated to do some big things. And so we have to mix those things like, hey, we can't get too caught up in patting ourselves on the back, being ranked number one. And simultaneously, we've got to put in the hard work and be smart and rest and do all the things it takes to continue that.
You mentioned how early it is in the season, but where do you think the ceiling is for this team now that you guys are
Yeah.
ranked number one? And how does this, I guess, today also raise that ceiling even higher?
Yeah, we played a lot of this fall without our number 2 guy last year, Board, and he's starting to come along. He shot a really good score at Lubbock Country Club, shot 63 yesterday, and on track to make the match play, and he missed the first 2 tournaments. So I think that speaks to our depth, but it also speaks to we got some more upside. If he can, he's getting his game turned around, getting back to kind of the old confident Board. And so we get him back in the lineup. We even have, maybe even a little more firepower in there from a guy who's played a lot of solid college golf. So the upside's still there for us to improve. We haven't hit a peak here, even though we've played some really good golf.
Coach, you mentioned Callum Scott. What kind of improvements has he made going from his freshman to sophomore year?
Yeah, he's put on a little bit of size. He's a kid that needed a little bit more size, so he's got in the weight room. He hits the golf ball really far, which obviously in today's day and age you see a lot of those players on top of the PGA Tour. So he's done that. He's gained length. He's mainly just gained some comfortability. Being a freshman, being in the shadow of his brother Sandy. Sometimes you just need to kind of feel your way through that process, and he's done an amazing job. And he really is not backing down from, from what his brother's done around here, and he wants to break all those records, being the little brother. He's a fierce competitor, and he does better when the stakes are higher. We go out here and practice, and you kind of think, maybe he's not playing so good, and doesn't look good going to the tournament, and then you turn the lights on, and it gets real interesting real quick, and he shines. So it's been interesting to watch him do that, but I think he's such a gamer and a tough guy, and he just finds a way to get it done.
Coach, you mentioned a few minutes ago about, you know what you need to do against some of the better teams in the country, and if you don't, you'll slip
Right.
up. You certainly can do that in the Big 12 match play
Right.
as well. Can you kind of look ahead to that and
Yeah, sure.
what's in store for you guys?
Yeah, match play's got a lot more variability. If a kid like Ludwig goes and shoots 63 out there, that helps a team score tremendously, but it just gets you 1 point in the match play. So, you got to play good up and down the lineup in that format when you're playing six players for, trying to get to 3.5 points. And so I think our depth will shine. I'm very confident, but at the same time, we know that you can play really well, maybe win 2 or 3 matches by a big margin, and then maybe all of a sudden you lose 3 matches really close. So very much brings the field in and makes it to where anyone can win in match play.
How do you feel like your experience at Greyhawk last year in match play,
Yeah.
and then a couple of your transfers, guys like Jack who played at SEC,
Yeah.
match play events, how do you think your depth and experience
Right.
with match play will help you next week in Houston?
Yeah, it will help us tremendously because we are counting all 6 players, and so I think our roster throughout holds up in the Big 12 really, really well. Matter of fact, that's where I think we start to gain a little bit of advantage when you look at 4, 5, 6, 7. We can take 7 guys, but we'll play 6. So I think most coaches agree 1 through 7 we've got the most depth, and I hope that will show up in this format. And to your point, like we've played a lot of meaningful match play. Some of these guys were a part of that team that won the 2019 match play, and we've got some familiarity with the golf course and some familiarity with how to play that place and how to succeed. So I think all that probably puts a big target on our back in some ways, but we'll embrace that and go play to our standard.
draws aside, obviously you don't know yet who you're going to end up drawing
Right.
with, but you've seen Oklahoma quite a bit at the 3 events. You've
Yeah.
seen Oklahoma State, Texas. How does the familiarity with the Big 12 teams and that you've
Yeah.
seen them and played with them, how does that help in a head-to-head competition like this?
Yeah, it helps in some ways, and in some ways it gets it closer, just like in any other sport. When you play another team a lot, you kind of know their tendencies, and that doesn't necessarily show up in X's and O's for coaching, but it does show up with the pride. These guys know each other, they want to beat each other, and so you get the best from everybody when you're playing against basically your friends and people you've grown up playing golf with. And there'll be some matchups that'll provide some of that kind of drama where, a kid on our team will know another kid really well, and that puts a lot of pressure on both those kids to want to go win, which is fun to watch and coach.
And then lastly, how does the mindset change? Obviously, you mentioned, you go out and shoot 63, but really match play is obviously a hole to
Yeah.
hole. So if you make a 7, it doesn't hurt you maybe
Yeah.
as much as it would. How does the mentality change during match play, and how do your guys kind of change the way they play? Do you maybe take more risks and things like that?
Yeah, you can be a little more aggressive in some spots. Specifically, there'll be some holes out there that we feel like it's better to play a little more aggressively, knowing that if you hit one out of play, you lose a hole rather than, okay, you put your team at a big disadvantage because you made a big number. And so there is a little bit of nuance there, but at the same time, we do try to just play our own game and not give away holes and play solid. And that's far more important than just going wild and being aggressive out there and losing holes because you're just trying to play aggressive.
What do you think your own game has been so far this year, and what do you hope to continue with?
My game?
Or their team, and
No, I'm
yours,
just
why
kidding.
not?
My game's terrible, but no, it was pretty good in COVID, but I had a lot of time then. So what was your question? Sorry, I
Just
derailed
what do you
that.
think that your overall makeup of your team is, playing your
Yeah,
own
yeah.
game, kind of
Yeah.
like you just said?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we've been a lot better and a lot more efficient around the greens, and that's obviously where you have to be great. So getting the ball in the hole around the greens is something we've done well, and that's why we've enjoyed this ranking. So you have to do that well no matter where you go, but I think the guys have adjusted to the grasses. We played at Inverness and won that event. They have a lot of bluegrass there and rough that we don't see here much. So I was really happy with how we scrambled around the greens there. And then we went to a Colonial, and it was presented a different set of challenges around the greens, and we handled that well. So it'll come down to those things: hole in the key putts to win holes, to win matches, and that kind of thing. You have to do that well in match play.
How does a weekend like match play set you up to be able to translate that into May? Obviously, Greyhawk
Right.
comes down to the stroke play. You got to
Right.
qualify for match
Yeah,
play,
sure.
but then it comes down to match play for the national championship.
Yeah, I do think some guys play match play at a little higher level than stroke play and vice versa, and so we may learn a few of those things that will help us to either try to help them develop a little bit better match play game by the time May rolls around, or it may be one of those things with the depth that we have that we may have some guys that were in the stroke play portion, but when it comes to the match play, maybe we'll sub in and out a little bit because we have that luxury.